Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Brewery Underground Podcast, where you can make sure to follow us at Sullivan, Touron, breweryadventures.com. I'm Steve Sullivan, along with the Chancellor of Craft Beer, Scott Touron. And Scott, we've talked about having guests from time to time on this podcast, brewery owners and others, to talk about what they do in the craft beer industry. And today, we have three guests on the line from Nashville. And with that, the floor is all yours, my friend, because you booked these guests today.
This is great. I'm excited. We've been talking about it for weeks, and we nailed down a time and we nailed down a date, and that's today. So we're lucky enough to have Dark Shadow Brewing Company with us out of Nashville, Tennessee. We have Keith, Rachel, and Craig. And if you guys don't mind, you just want to go around and each one of you and say hello.
Hey, I'm Keith.
My name's Craig. I currently work in the restaurant business, and I'm loving what I'm doing right now to start this business.
And I'm Rachel. I'm kind of the woman-owned part of the business. So originally from California, but here in Nashville now. I'm loving it.
So you guys mind maybe a quick synopsis of what you Rachel, you just did, but maybe kind of tell what each of you do within the brewery, or does everybody do a little bit of everything?
Yeah, we all do a little bit of everything. Craig and I focus on brewing. Rachel's touched on brewing, but she does a lot of the other stuff. She comes up with some of the better recipes for us to create and invent and deal with. I think it's a good collaboration in the way we've kind of just fit into our little roles.
So, and in reading your story on your website, there are some other people as well that are part of your team that might not be on the podcast today?
Yeah, we have another brother who we started it with, and then we do have a partner out in Delaware that she was a friend, and she's kind of a part of the business as well.
More of a silent.
More of a silent. Yeah.
So what? Again, and I'm going to refer to your website a lot probably because your story is great and I read it. But would you mind kind of talking about how you guys got started? We've read it, but for those that haven't.
Yeah. So basically, it. I mean, I don't know if it's considered morbid or not, but my mom died. Our mom died.
Yeah.
So as brothers growing up, my mom was divorced, and it was a single family, and so we weren't very close as a family growing up. And when my mom passed away, it was in Chicago because that's where she lived. But we were living in all different parts of the country at the time. And we all went back to Chicago for the funeral. And when we were there, we started talking a little bit and basically decided that, as a family, maybe we needed to be a little bit closer. We shouldn't be so distant. We shouldn't be so far apart. As brothers, we probably need to stay in contact and be with each other a little bit more. So what we did was we decided we'll start doing like daily or weekly meetings, kind of like Zoom-like. And it was also around the beginning of COVID. So with that, it seemed to work out really well that every week we would kind of meet online. We would start talking, get to know each other's we know each other's backgrounds, but get to know each other now. Mm-hmm. And reconnect, and we were doing it via beer too. So
we were definitely sharing a happy hour. Our local craft brewery. I'd go grab some beer. Keith would grab some beer from here. Eric would grab some beer from where he was at. I was in Pittsburgh at the time, so we would just grab beer and basically made it a happy hour every week. We would have a meeting for about an hour or so, depending on how much time we had.
Yeah, we would sit and talk and drink, and when we found the beers, we would also share them with each other. We were like, oh my God, this is so good, you got to try that. And so we would ship it to each other, wink, wink, and we would try the beers when they arrived. So it'd be something to look forward to and enjoy a beer, and then at some point we'd like, why don't we just start making some beer? So we went about the process of buying the standard kits. It's already got the wort made. All you kind of got to do is just boil it up and put it together and you're done. And again, started sharing it with each other. And it's like, okay, well, this is good and all, but I think we can do better. And so that's when we kind of moved into like, let's hit the grains. Let's do this. If we're going to do this, let's do this. Mm-hmm. And so Craig and I really started focusing on that. And then when we did, it was really good. And we're like, let's do this.
Let's really do this.
Underline.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and Craig was up in Pittsburgh at the time. I was here in Nashville, and the other brother was out in Arkansas, and we were trying to decide, okay, of those 3 locations, where would really be the best to potentially open a brewery? And we debated about it, and it actually turned out that Nashville would be the best place at the time to open the brewery. So they came down here, and we've been doing brewing and fests ever since.
For the last 2.5 years, 3 years now.
Yeah, I've come across you guys twice. The Beer, Wine, and Shine, I think back in October of this year, and then in 2022 is the Preds beer fest that they've had. So, what other ones do you try to get them all in the year? You can get to, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do about I think 22 and 23 we did about 9 and 10 fests. 23 was a little bit harder because they didn't really have any spring fests. All the fests seemed to fall in the fall, and that made it difficult. As a home brewer, there were fests that landed on the same day, and we either had to choose or we split. And being small like that, it's too difficult to split. But we try to get all the main ones, and when you do the fests, you have to let them know you're a home brewer. There are certain fests where they want you to have your distribution license, or they want you to actually be a brewery to participate. But for the most part, as long as you're upfront and honest with who you're talking with, they've never had a problem with us being in there as a home brewer. So we try to get all the big fests around Nashville.
As much as we can.
Hey, Scott had mentioned in the beginning of this podcast your story. Can you talk about your story and where people can find that and everything else on your website?
Yeah. I mean, the story is on the website. So if you go to darkshadowbrewingco.com, we had to add the little co. So darkshadowbrewingco.com, that's got everything on there. It's got our story. It's got typically what we're trying to brew or have brewed, upcoming fests. It's also got information about us wanting to be a community-supported brewery and ways that the community can support us in that aspect. I don't remember. Does it have our story behind our name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The story of how the name came about.
Yeah. So our name came about.
Bios, but not.
Yeah. We didn't put the name story down, but the name came about. Again, we sat and we brainstormed or beer stormed,
right?
And tried to figure out a name, because it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we need a name. And we sat there and we're just trying to think of different things and all this other stuff. And then I was on a trip back with my wife, Rachel here, and we were coming back from New Orleans, and we were, again, thinking about names. And one of the things that popped up on my head is like, we often have, or you often see, pets in business names or things of that nature. And I mentioned, as brothers, Eric, Craig, and I, we had a dog that was, our very first dog was named Shadow. It was just a little nut. I remember getting it on Christmas, and it was a little black dog, little white speck on the chest and all that. And I'm like, Shadow, how can we work Shadow into a name? And as I mentioned, from coming back from New Orleans, we had just done a whole bunch of ghost hunting and things of that nature, one of her passions. So we were just trying to combine that in some way, shape, or form, and Dark came up. And we mentioned Dark Shadow, and we brought it back to Eric and Craig, and they loved it at the time. So it stuck. And so far, Dark Shadow has been a great name for us. I mean, people do associate it with the old campy vampire show of Dark Shadows. But
right.
That's actually not where it came from at all. It's Dark Shadow, and it came from our dog.
Dog and our love of ghost hunting.
I love all things spooky.
All things spooky.
Yeah, some of your artwork on your site and your sticker too kind of reflects some of that too. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the lamppost in it kind of came from the New Orleans, the gas lights down there.
Yeah.
And we had that idea of with our logo of the guy with the top hat in it, kind of looked a little Jack the Ripper-esque.
Yeah.
We wanted that sort of, Victorian era guy. You couldn't tell if he's looking at you or looking away from you, because he's just a dark shadow.
Eerie and suspicious and all that. Maybe kind of a reflection of what the brewery is, right? Hey,
Yeah.
Well, I do like the fact that, as you mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, that you've been brought together, through COVID. Has this been, when you look back, because COVID wasn't that long ago, and everybody across the country was impacted in some sort of way. I know you all talked about the distance. I'm from Cincinnati. I have a mother that's in assisted living. I went a year without seeing her. You all talked about getting on Zoom meetings and coming together with this. Talk about the emotions of all that, because I'm sure you look back now and you go, had they been a bit of emotional too, as you look back, and are you proud by this fact that you've been able to come together by all of this kind of thing?
Oh, definitely. I think if you believe in that sort of thing, that our mom is smiling at us right now because we did finally get back together. It took us a while, and it took us, unfortunately, losing her to do that. And there's a lot of mixed emotions to that as well. But I think that if you think about it on a existential level, that she would definitely be smiling on us right now, saying, "Hey, I'm glad they finally got back together at some point."
No, I can't believe.
Would she be surprised that beer brought you all together?
I think so. I do think that whether it was COVID or not, had we been able to do this at a different time or even at the same time, I think it would have still clicked. Mm-hmm. I think it would have happened. I think finally realizing that family's forever. That's one of those things that I don't think being apart and an occasional Merry Christmas text or something like that really got us together. I think as Craig said, unfortunately it was her passing that brought us together. And in an ideal world, it would have been some other reason for that. Us getting together, maybe just to visit her for something or something along those lines. We all ended up at the same place at the same time. But when it comes down to it, I think again, it would have happened one way or the other. I think we grew into it, and as he said, wherever she's at, whether she was alive or gone, she would have been proud of the fact that it was really through her that we did come together. Mm-hmm.
And you guys made it happen. You didn't just talk about it too, right? It progressed, right? You made stuff over Teams or Zoom, and then you like, hey, we're going to actually do something about this. And like you said, you picked out the city that you wanted to, which was Nashville, and made it happen, which is not easy to do because you got to pick up and leave from wherever you were living at the time.
Yeah, right. Right. It wasn't easy. I mean, I think Eric and Craig had virtual type jobs, so it helped them in the way of being able to relocate. No. And it made it easier. It wasn't like that they had to just quit their job and come here, but it was a little harder for Craig. He did have a real job, more or less.
It was a little bit harder until during the Zoom meetings, the company that I worked for, over a different Zoom call, decided to let me go. Oh. And then as soon as they let me go, it was like, okay, now it makes the choice a little bit easier to decide on a city and do it.
See, Craig, for me, it would have been everybody else moved to Nashville and I'm still here. I would have had FOMO. I'm like, well, I
gotta go.
It's like, wait, they're doing it and I'm still here. I got to go too.
Right.
Hey, so guys, you mentioned a few minutes ago about the community supported thing, and this is one of the things I find really interesting, and we could probably spend an hour just on this, but what is that? Okay, and I kind of understand it by reading your story again, but explain what that is, because I think I've not come across this before, and I think it's wonderful. But kind of go into detail, as much detail as you want to, and talk about that.
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit. So, because it was kind of the idea I thought about back in California, I was in the sustainability world. And one of the things in the community was all about community supported agriculture. So we kind of pulled it from that model. And that's really where community supported agriculture was more of supporting a local community farm. And all of the processes that they do, and you'll be able to purchase like a box, like a community supported agriculture box. They call it the CSA, and that's where you get all your fresh vegetables instead of buying them at a ginormous grocery store. You're really supporting the local little farmer. And so we kind of had that kind of was the thought behind it. And I did a little bit of research and found out there were quite a few out there across the U.S. that did the community supported brewery model. Most of them did it along the lines of like a mug club kind of thing. But again, they kind of touted it as a community supported brewery. But we thought that would be a good way to get the community involved in what we're doing instead of just being another brewery that just opens their doors. We wanted to just be the community to be kind of integrated with us and us with them. And so we came across doing this model about, just different ways that we can get them involved. A lot of that is monetary based at the moment, but we're looking to kind of get something for that, which that means like we have on there doing
merch.
Yeah, well, obviously merchandise, but that we do, but we also we want them to be involved as far as like doing, once we open the doors, like doing tours, like special events for them, even like a name the beer. So those kind of things to make them feel like they're involved with us, because that's what we really are kind of like driven towards.
But I think part of it too, for me, and I think I'm not stepping out of bounds here, is we like to give a lot of businesses talk about giving back to the community as well. So being community shared, they're going to help us, but we're going to try and give back to them as well.
As much as of the community as we can in the way of, acquiring grains or hops or anything like that, anything we can do locally to help out as well. They're, like Craig just said, they're helping us, we're helping them.
Yeah,
To your knowledge, are there any other community-based breweries in Nashville right now?
No,
not to
our knowledge.
What and I saw you've got different tiers on your website too, kind of like you can and if you want to talk about those, I don't know if you have the details right in front of you, but I saw there's multiple things, you invest this amount and you kind of get this and so on.
Yes, yeah, that's kind of what we did. We based it on different tiered levels of support. Mm-hmm. So I think the very lowest level, I forget what we called it. We don't have it in front of us. but Keith will grab it real quick.
Yeah, I mean the different levels obviously give you different perks. So the higher the level, the more perks you're going to get, where it gets even up to the point of, like Rachel was saying earlier, naming a beer, not just tours, but naming a beer, even helping us brew a beer. We can kind of show them how to do it and they can be part of it. There it is. Keith's got it.
Yeah, so we were talking about different ways and things, because people want to be able to support us, but they're not going to be able to, support as much as some other people can. So, we did come up with like 4 different levels. We tried to name them kind of like per our brewery. We have a fog level, a lamplighter level, the darker level, and then our shadow level. And as I think they were saying, it's not a mug club per se. Once we open doors, we'll have a mug club, but it'll give them not only the options to have the first shot at a mug club, but if they choose not to be the mug club, they can still be involved. They'll still get, like the lowest level, they can get a T-shirt. They'll do member-only events, discounts on merch, and then they'll get beer. They can get a free crowler a month for like 6 months. So each level gets a little bit more involved, and it just depends on how much the support is on what they would get. And we want everyone to be able to feel like they can support if they want to.
And for people that are interested in doing that, how would they go about contacting you?
Typically through the website. The website has got all that information on there.
But we also have it all on. They can contact us through Instagram or Facebook Messenger, and any one of those. We have the capability to receive messages and respond.
Yeah, our website's probably the best way, but also darkshadow@gmail.com is a direct.
Oh, it's Dark Shadow Brewing Co.
Dark Shadow Brewing Co. @gmail.com is our direct email.
Yeah, so if they, and I think that's on the website as well. So if they wanted to connect to us directly, either it's Facebook, it's Instagram, or it's the Gmail account, darkshadowbrewingco@gmail.com. Those are the best and most direct ways to reach us. We might even have a QR code on the account. Not on the account, on the website that's attached to this as well.
Yeah, I think there is, yeah.
So if they didn't even want to talk to us, sometimes I don't want to talk to people either. I just want to go pay my bill and be done.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Then we just do it digitally, and nobody has to, talk or anything.
I mean, like you guys, we do get people at Fest who say that they've read our website, they've read the story, they really love what we do and what we're doing. So it's great to hear that. It's great to hear that feedback, and we want to be out there. We want to be able to open doors. So when people say, "Where are you at?" you say, "Well, here we are. Come sit down," rather than we're still trying to work on it.
Like we did recently with a couple that met us.
Yeah.
And we ended up having a beer, and they decided with them, and they decided to go ahead and join one of those levels because they enjoyed our beer. Well,
yeah, that was kind of out of what happened was there was a Pugs for Pints event. So it's a little event that you go to support basically pugs.
Pug rescue.
Yeah,
right?
Pug rescue. And we donated to them. We donated a little swag kit with a 4-pack of beer, some T-shirts, a glass, all that stuff. And the people who bid on it and won it told us afterwards, because we were there. They said, "Hey, we found your site, we found your stuff, we really like it. We want to support you." And then we talked about the beer we have, and they're like, "Hey, can we meet up? Can we talk?" And so we did, and we even gave them more beer at that time because they were really interested in a pickle beer. So yeah, we met with them and we talked to them, and they're great supporters, and it's you don't know where it's going to come from. We were just trying to donate to a good cause with the Pugs for Pints, and all of a sudden we got someone to help support us out of it too. It was a great interaction, and feeling.
It kind of being that kind of boils down to being part of the community, you and them, and the whole thing. It's nice,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, speaking of the beer, you have a list of some of your beers on your website at the darkshadowbrewingco.com. Can you talk about some of your beers that you have out there right now?
Well, we're between fests, so the beer flows low.
When people are going to these brew fests and beer fests, what can they get from you guys?
Typically, we kind of try to stick with our one staple. I mean, what we do is we want to have a few staples on hand when we open our brewery. Something that if they come there, it's always going to be on tap. One of our big beers has been our dark lager. People seem to really like that. It's gone really well, and it typically goes really well. So if they come to a fest, there's a good chance they're going to get that dark lager. We try to mix in an IPA. Craig is our big IPA guy. He loves IPAs. His motto is the happier.
Happier makes me happier.
So we try to get an IPA in there, and then we like to mix it up. We like to come up with different beers. Rachel, she came up with a fantastic one. It was a rosehip hibiscus ale. And, it was different. It was questionable, but once Craig and I came up with the recipe and we brewed it, it's been amazing. People give us such great feedback. The pickle beer.
We won an award.
Yeah, we won an award for that at a fest.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. People, they come up with different ideas. Again, Rachel came up with the pickle beer, and it's like, okay, pickle beer, really? I don't know. But we brewed it, and every time we brewed it, it's just been amazing on the reaction. We did a Mexican jalapeno lager, but the difference with that one was we took out, in burning my hands, we took out all the seeds and spines of the jalapenos, so we made it a heatless jalapeno Mexican beer. And again, they loved it, and some of them were like, "Oh, I want that heat," but wow, this is still really good. So now we're gonna have to revisit it with heat.
You get one without, one with.
So yeah, that's
it's something that we try to stick with staples, but we're not afraid to experiment.
No.
And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But most of ours have not gone wrong yet. Knock on wood. They've been pretty good, and they've been received very well. And we're not afraid to experiment. There's a lot of places out there that seem like they just want to stick to the regular beers.
A lot of people have liked our sours too.
Yeah.
We've done some sours that we did like a blueberry
cheesecake
sour.
Blueberry cheesecake sour.
Well, and you missed that because it was this year's Preds Fest, not last year's. We got there, and someone had mentioned I mentioned the beers before we started, and I mentioned the blueberry sour, and someone's like, "Oh, that's gonna go first." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, "I don't know about that." And sure enough, she was right. It blew first. I was like, "Wow, people just loved it."
Mm-hmm.
Well, we would love your brewery when it opens, and certainly I look forward to once you're at another beer fest this coming year in 2024. That's one of the things that Scott and I have in common as far as like craft beer. We like trying different varieties of craft beer. And I've said this on previous podcasts. I go in, and when I can look up on the board and I can see beers that I've not had before, that's a win for me. And I think that's probably a win for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go back to the beers you're talking. One of the ones I had at the Beer, Wine, and Shine was the maple. Whose idea was this maple bacon pepper porter?
That
was good.
She really comes up with a lot of good ideas. But yeah, it was her idea, and I don't even know where it came from.
My love of bacon.
Maple syrup
had
and
that.
Bacon. What's better than that?
I had at First Watch, which is a brunch place here in the Nashville area, and they have something that's called $1 million bacon. And it's essentially just bacon. They put black pepper, and then they drizzle it with a little maple syrup. And I was like, oh, this would make a great beer.
See, it's like a brewer's, and you guys mentioned you had listened to the Chris Dolan podcast too. It's like that brewer's mentality kind of, I can make something out of food, or I want to make a beer out of this. And is that kind of where some of your inspirations come from too?
Absolutely.
Without a doubt, yeah. A dark chocolate covered strawberry stout that we did last year. I mean, everybody likes chocolate covered strawberries.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Well, and one of the other things is maybe some sort of collaborations, because she has a friend who's a baker, and one of the things we're thinking about as we get into opening the business is doing like a pairing. So if we had like a chocolate covered strawberry stout, and she had a cupcake to go with it, we can do pairings like that.
Man. Can you give me a call and let me know, text me when that happens, and I'll be there.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
but that's,
she's
again, and that can be part of the special events that we have for our supported community is, hey, we're doing a pairing this week, and it's going to be beers and cupcakes, or it's going to be beers and cheese, or it's going to something like that. So it's something that they can look forward to as well. But it also allows us to continue to experiment in our brewing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know those pairings work. I was at Burial a couple of years ago, and they had some kind of pastry stout or something. It was really good, and they had a donut in it, like it kind of paired with it. It's like, yep, that's perfect. It went well together. I was gonna say, so as far as the brewery goes, are you able to kind of say, or have you got an idea when you might have a brick and mortar place, or is that the question you kind of get all the time?
Yeah, no, that is the question we get all the time. I mean, obviously, I'd like to have it yesterday, but it's a process, and it's a bit of a process more than I expected. So in an ideal world, it'll be 2024, maybe early 25. But who knows what can happen between now and then? And it would be great to have it sooner than later, but unfortunately, things take time, and unless someone comes to us and says, hey, I got $1 million I want to give you, or we win the lottery.
Yeah.
That'll be tier 5, right? The $1 million.
Most families, brothers, sisters, have different personalities. How would you say your personalities mesh with this brewery? Because certainly there has to be times where you have disagreements.
Rachel's shaking her head. Yeah, she's got 100 stories, I can tell.
If we start with just the beer, our personalities actually work really well with that, because I'm kind of like the stout lager type guy, maybe ales. Craig is more the IPA type guy. Eric does like the porters and the heavier beers like that. So I think our taste range, and
she likes everything.
She likes everything. So our taste range on that, as far as personalities, again, that's.
It's brothers.
Yeah, it's brothers. I don't know if you guys have brothers, but it's a family thing. There will be disagreements, and the biggest thing with that is to talk through them. I mean, talk to each other. Don't just hide yourself or say, well, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Let's sit down and figure out why someone's thinking some way and why that this is happening, or the disagreement, or even if it's an agreement, why do you think we should do that IPA? Our Tennessee Orange IPA Slammer. Again, that's another popular one, but I was like, well, I don't know, why orange? And Craig's like, oh, come on, why not?
I mean, the original idea behind it was like a creamsicle. So it's like, who doesn't like a creamsicle on a hot day, right?
Sure.
Right.
You're growing up and you love that creamsicle. But I think, to his point, the other part of it is not just being able to talk through things, but being able to separate our personal life from the brewery. It's not always easy, especially as brothers and as family. But for the most part, we've been able to do that to this point. We've been able to separate what's going on in our personal lives from what we're doing with the brewery.
I would think some of that creativity lends itself to the different, you just mentioned it, different styles of beers. Like you like one thing, you like this. So now, and I've looked at you, you've got just about every style covered that you're either making now or have made. So I love that diversity.
Yeah, and it's fun to do, and it's fun to come up with the ideas, and we've bounced things off of each other where we were thinking that one would be a goza, and it's like, okay, well, no, let's make it a sour instead. Let's do this as a lager, and no, I think it'll go better as an IPA. That's how, like you just said, the creativity comes out. We talk about it and we discuss it and we say, okay, what's going to be next? Like I'm going to work on the chocolate raspberry stout next. And, the thought was maybe a lager, but no, stout makes more sense. Even though we had the dark chocolate strawberry stout, we're going to do a milk chocolate raspberry stout. So they're going to be similar, but they're going to be different. I got a 5-pound bag of chocolate that's burning a hole in my pocket.
We're going to do something with it. It's just a matter of what.
Well, exactly. It's also really, in my mind, maybe someone else will think differently, but I think it's really hard to screw up chocolate and raspberry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking back to the pickle beer, like that would be really easy to mess up too at the same time, right? It's because I've had some pickle beers, and sometimes some taste just like dill pickle juice out of the jar, and some have a nice balance where it's I really like this thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't had any pickle beers yet. I haven't gone down that route. Maybe one day I will. There's certain things that I just look at and I go, a pickle beer. Well, maybe one of these days I'll get that on a flight. I haven't been that brave yet.
But that's exactly what you said. That's what makes it so great. Is you can do it in a flight. You can do just a little 3 or 4 ounce pour, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. You don't even have to finish the 3 or 4 ounce pour. Now you're wasting beer, and that's your issue. But
alcohol abuse.
If it's only a 3 or 4, maybe if you don't like it that much, you hold your nose and say goodbye and get rid of it anyway. But that's the great thing about craft beer is that, one, there's so much out there, and two, you can try it in little samples. You don't have to force yourself to buy a 12-ounce bottle or a 6-pack and after the first beer, wow, this sucked. I got to know what do I do with these next 5 beers.
Yeah, I was in Knoxville a couple of weeks ago, and there was one at Last Days of Autumn, and they had it was a habanero something IPA, and I got it in the flight, and thankfully, because it was just enough. If I had got a pint of that, I'd still be there drinking it, because but the flight was just enough.
Another thing that I really liked in reading your story is that all of you bring something different to the table, whereas you didn't just come from a beer background. You all have very diverse experiences in other fields of endeavor, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. And in fact, that, beer for me is kind of like my current employment. I got into medical healthcare simulation almost out of nowhere back in 2008. I remember applying for the job. I didn't know anything about simulators. I didn't know anything about simulation in healthcare. And when they hired me, I fell in love with it, and it was amazing. And I've learned so much. I got my master's degree in medical and healthcare simulation. I manage the simulation lab at Meharry. And when we started this with beer, I knew about beer, because we drank beer, but I didn't really know the intricacies. And to start into it and start brewing it and seeing all, not just the process, but everything that goes into it, I loved it. I love it. Nothing makes me happier. When we were doing the stupid little kits in the kitchen on the stove, I'd be dancing around because I just loved brewing. It was so amazing, and I still love it to this day. So
even when you did the rolling pin.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, when we first started with grain, we didn't know about the
having to mill it.
the grain mills, and so dummy me ordered unmilled grain, and the only way I could mash it was with a rolling pin. And that was the biggest nightmare I ever had with this. Just sitting on the counter.
Like cursing.
Oh, I was cursing everything. But I still got
But see, that's what makes for some great stories later on a podcast like this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Craig's background, he's been in restaurants, so I can let him talk about that.
I mean, actually, I had two different backgrounds. I started in theater arts and communications. That's what I went to school for. That's what I went to college for, and that's where I started my career. But I've been bouncing around since doing restaurants because I helped put myself through college in restaurants. So I've been going back and forth between restaurants for 20 plus years now. And moving around the country, I always tried to find a beer that was consistent, that I could, no matter where I went in the country, I could drink it and it still tastes good. Miller Lite's different everywhere. Bud Light's different everywhere. Plus, it's just water, basically. Did I say that out loud? But
that's okay.
Finding a good beer that has substance was not easy to do going across the country. So then that's when I started drinking the craft beers. Started finding different. I don't need the same beer everywhere I go. Now I can just drink a beer that looks interesting. But again, it was smaller back then. There wasn't as many craft breweries back then as there is now. So it was harder to find that kind of stuff. And you had to take the chance, like Keith was saying earlier. You had to go buy a 6-pack at the grocery store and take a chance and hope that it all tasted good. Because then if you got, like, you drink that first one and it's not so good, you still got 5 more you got to kind of finish somehow.
Yeah, and a lot of those early microbrewers weren't consistent within themselves either, right? You could have the same beer a couple times and it would be different because there was no consistency to a lot of those.
Right. Well, my love for hospitality, my love for what I do now is only going to carry over into the brewery because it's that experience of knowing what the guest coming in the door wants is going to help, I think, in the long run. Plus, it's just something I love doing. I love talking to people, and I love being able to help people, guide them through their experience, whatever it is, whatever menu it might be, whether it's a food menu, a beer menu, whatever it might be.
Craig, you just talked about traveling and trying different ones. Was there a particular beer though, and this question's for all of you, that got you kind of bridge that gap between, say, Budweiser and craft beer? Like, was there one beer that did that for you guys?
I don't even know that it exists anymore. But the beer for me was Honey Brown.
Well, and I think the closest thing that I experienced that was mass produced, kind of crafty, was more of a Sam Adams.
Yeah, well, I come from kind of the medical world, but I'm in dental now. So managing a dental practice here in Nashville, that's what I did out in California. So that really, I think, lends to the fact of what I do with Dark Shadow. I do a lot of the business side of it, and also kind of the social media part.
Oh yeah.
And social
media queen right there.
Connect with other beer groups. I'm a part of several woman beer groups. One of them is Beer Babes Family that I'm a part of. We've done a collaboration with Common Law and Beer Babes 2 years in a row
Twice
now.
now,
Yeah. Common Law is a brewery out in Spring Hill, Tennessee. So they've kind of been a mentor to us. They've been, and that was, not to step on her explanation right here. I'll let her finish. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah. So, that, and then just the local, I belong to local, sort of women who enjoy drinking beer. We just get together. We're called the Nashville Brunettes. So, yeah.
You're part of that? Okay. I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've also, all of us together, have been part of the Nashville Craft Beer Social Club. So, we try to be really involved in the community. And, with our collaboration, we try to give back. That's what Beer Babes family does, the collaborations that we did, all that money went back into the Beer Babes family as a charity, and they help women in the beer industry. So from all the way from those who just love to drink beer up to women who brew beer.
Fantastic.
But that's essentially what the Beer Babes collab was women really getting involved in brewing the beer as well.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because Scott and I both, he moved to Nashville many years ago. I've lived here for 25 years. And when I first came here, there may have been 3 or 4 places you could go to maybe sort of kind of get some different beer other than some of the regulars that you all talked about earlier. When you look at the Nashville brewery scene now, what do you guys think about it?
It's growing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, we've been here for about 4 years now. Craig got here a little later, but we've been here for about 4 years, and it's growing, but it's also, we're seeing some close as well. We've seen like 3 close in the last,
Outside of
6
Nashville,
months.
though.
But yeah, technically they were outside of Nashville, but they're the Nashville area, I suppose. But yeah, it's great, and that's when you mention the community. That's what's really surprising to me when I got into this. When we got into this, is that when you get into a business, you expect it to be a business, and you expect other businesses to be like, oh, we're gonna knock them down. We don't want them to start. We don't even want them around. But it's actually
Opposite.
100% the opposite. Anytime we've gone anywhere and we've talked to the brewers or the owners, they have been extremely supportive. They not just in the fact that they want to support us in general. They would love to see another brewery here. They're not like, no, you're not going to open a brewery down the street. That's going to be my competition, blah, blah, blah. No, they're like, yeah, we'd love it if you could. Yeah, exactly. And that's how the conversations end. If there's anything I can do to help, let us know. And that's really, in my mind, crazy because, it is a business when it comes down to it, but to be supported by everybody in that business is absolutely amazing. I love it.
I think from my perspective, I've noticed when I'm traveling around that back when the craft breweries scene started overall, it was very hush-hush. It was very, I'm not going to tell you any of my secrets. I'm not going to help you at all. And then somewhere along the line, craft brewers realized that it only helps each other to help each other. It's only going to support me to support you, to help you out, to teach you, to whatever. It just, it brings, it is a true community. Even when I was in Pittsburgh before I moved here, all those breweries said the same thing. Oh, you should open in Pittsburgh. If you need anything, let us know. We will help you. So, I mean, even was lucky enough to go to the CBC this year.
Yeah.
And talking to a lot of the people from all over the country that I talked to, wanting to do collabs. The guy from Common Law is trying to do a around the world collab with a guy from Japan. So, I mean, it's amazing how this community is, unlike most businesses, is very welcoming and very willing to help each other.
And I can say as a consumer, whether it's in Nashville or we go to another city, the more breweries, the better, because we want to hit, if there's one, hey, I'm probably not even going to go there, But if there's 4 or 5 or 10, hey, we got to hit them all. And the more there are, the more.
Definitely.
We've been adding extra days when we go on our trips anymore.
It's all about me, man. I need more flights. But hey, before we wrap this up in a few minutes, Scott, are there some other questions that you have for these fine folks today?
Actually, there are. So you mentioned earlier that it's not really beer fest season, so you're not brewing a whole lot. But when you are, how much time are you spending doing that? Hey, you got a beer fest in a couple of weeks or whatever it is. You take the whole weekend to do that. It's just day. You try to do it in the evenings.
What we have to do is we have to plan it out. So we'll find out when the beer fests are, and we'll put it on a calendar. Generally for us, it'll take about 3 weeks to a month for a beer from the start to the end. But when we brew it, it's a day-long process. We do 5-gallon batches at a time. So we'll start, depends on when we get up. I like to get up early. So I can start by 6 or 7, and then I'll be done by about, 3 or 4. But that also includes cleanup. So it's not just the entire brew process, but some of the brews take a little bit longer. Some of them might be like a 90-minute boil.
Or the Martzen.
Or the Martzen. Like our Martzen is a true Martzen. We'll brew that in March, and it'll sit until September. We did that the last 2 years, and people seem to love it. It works out well, but once it's brewed, it just goes into the closet and sits.
The beer closet.
But yeah, we have to plan it out ahead of time, and it's so we did have a fest pop up on us, and we had to turn it down because there was just no time to get beers. We had our beers planned, and it would have been great to get there, but we're not a big production company, so if we don't have anything extra or we don't have it planned, there's a good chance we're probably not going to be able to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a process for sure, and the what we're trying to do this year that we didn't do last year is to not be so stagnant over this off season, to have a few beers in our back pocket basically in case something did pop up. That way, we're instead of saying no, we can go, okay, well, I've got this, and this. Was that going to go good at that fest? Okay, let's bring them.
Yeah,
you just did your cranberry IPA.
I got a cranberry IPA right now. Yep.
The cranberry IPA. We've got a strawberry shortcake in the fridge, and then we've got the chocolate strawberry. I'm gonna do, or the chocolate raspberry. I'm gonna do. So we'll have some beers in under our belt.
And you want?
Okay, so these are for upcoming festivals, and you're gonna kind of hang on to these for those.
Yeah, they're not for anything right now.
I mean, yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, one of the things we like to do, especially with our leftover beer, is we can't. Well, we could dump it, but that would be a sin. So we do have a canner, and we have cans. So when we have leftover beer, we'll can them. And if people, are following us or they love our beer at the fest or something like that, we always tell them to follow us on social media and hit us up. If we have extra, we're more than happy to give it away. I mean, it does hurt. I know it does hurt a little because we're giving away beer, but that's all we can do. As a home brewer, we can't sell it in any way, shape, or form. Unless they buy a T-shirt and then a 6-pack accidentally ends up in there. But yeah, it's something that we'll do is we'll give away beer because it beats throwing it away.
Yeah, and it gets our name out there.
It gives a good birthday gift, Christmas gift.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Because chances are not many other people are going to have that canned beer by you guys.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's true too.
Yeah, it is a great. It's a great advertising too, doing that, and again the festival, seeing you guys out there, it's awesome. And I got a quick little story for the Preds Beer Fest 2022. You either followed my buddy Tom and Frankie, they had a little following or something. You followed them or they followed you, and you guys end up giving them 2 tickets to that beer fest. And from that point on, you guys have always stood out to me like that was really cool.
Well, I mean, some of us give us tickets, and when they do. We'll do what we can to give them away. I mean, it's fun to give away to the community, whether we just give them away or we'll do a little, follow tag and do that little Instagram thing that she does so well to give away the tickets. And then they'll come to us and you gave us tickets. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you're here. Hopefully you like the beer. And it's fun. And on a story on that 2022 fest, this is a fun little story. Craig was working the VIP, and he can go ahead and tell you about his beer fountain.
Oh yeah, we had one of the collabs that we do with Common Law. We had a regular Sankey keg, the regular keg, and it was from Beer Babes, and that's the one we decided to use in the VIP. And we were right dead center of that big bar that they have in the VIP area, and we're hooking it up because we had to borrow in the lounge. We had to borrow a jockey box from Preds to hook it up because we didn't have that style. So I tapped it, and it seemed secure and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, the one that they gave us, the little hose decided to pop out of the Sankey keg. So literally, there was a beer fountain that hit the ceiling. This one ran. Rachel ran like nobody's business. And I'm sitting there getting drenched in a beer shower while I'm trying to shut this off. And I thought it was just the CO2, so I tried to shut that off. That didn't work. And then I looked at it closer and realized that the whole thing had popped off.
Oh no!
So I had to actually untap it, and we lost probably about 3/4 of the keg.
Oh,
and most of it was on me, on the ceiling, and on me.
but see, for something like that again. That's another great story for a podcast like ours. So we love it.
That's what we put in our back pocket.
Hey guys, we definitely appreciate you joining us today. Your story is just fantastic, and we hope that we can spread the word for you. Before we wrap this up, we want to make sure that people again know how to find you. So if you could talk a little bit about the various ways out there on social media that people can find you.
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Dark Shadow Brewing Co. And we're on, now it's not Twitter
X.
anymore, we're on X,
X.
as well. Aren't we on
Website.
and of course our website, which is darkshadowbrewingco.com. So we're there as well.
Yeah, I'd say check that out too, because there's even more information about your story on there too, which I just found
Definitely.
wonderful.
We post where we're going to be. So if you're interested, like for the upcoming fest for next year when they start up.
Yeah, we try to put the beers on there too, so you know what to expect. You know, sometimes we're not always up to date with the beers, but we try to get them out there because it's nice to see what's coming up, and it's nice to see not just the event, but what's going to be at the event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, typically we'll get the beers to the event promoters, and then we just have to get them over to our website. So whether they're looking at the event itself
put it on
or
Instagram too, what we're doing, what we're brewing, you'll find there. I know our Pickle Rickle has a little video that goes with it.
Well, I plan to be in line when you guys are doing all this. I'm looking forward to tasting your beers in 2024.
Yeah, we're going to make sure to follow you on social media so we can see the latest and the greatest and when something's coming and where you're going to be, and check that calendar out too. And I don't mean to make this drag on forever because I've got 100 more questions, but I do have. What is there any advice you'd give to someone who is maybe trying to start a brewery, and whether it's community supported or not? What have you guys?
I think with the 100 questions, there's nothing wrong with a podcast part 2.
Yeah,
Definitely.
But as far as starting out, we actually had some people come up to us at Tennessee Beer, Wine, and Shine and ask. And, you know, they ask questions of how did you do this? How are you here? How do you get the fest? Stuff like that. And, you know, I think if they have no experience, the best way to start out is to literally buy the pre-made kits. I mean, we went to Northern Brewer, shameless plug because they don't know us. But we went to Northern Brewer and we bought the very basic kit. It comes with, you know, the pot, the fermenter, the all the little things you need.
And
it's
1 gallon fermenter.
Right, and it's super very basic on how to brew it. And if you have someone do that and they get through that, then you can, or they know how to do that, then you can mention the grains and the simple things you need to brew with that. And always, you know, I'm always saying, reach out to us. Let us know if you need help. Let us know what you need. That's the
We're
biggest
happy to
thing.
pay it forward.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is just to help either verbally or physically, any way you can with someone who's starting out.
People have helped us, and we're more than willing to help each other. I think the biggest thing is persistence. Don't give up. I mean, we could have given this up a while ago because it does take longer than you think.
Well, and it's kind of expensive.
And it's expensive.
Especially when you have to mill your own grain too. It takes a little bit longer than you thought.
Yeah.
Huh?
Especially if you do it by rolling pin.
Yeah.
We have a grain mill now, so we solved that problem.
Yeah. Guys, this has been fantastic today, and I think we will definitely have you on a future podcast to track your progress in the years to come, because it sounds like a lot of great things are coming for your brewery here in the future.
Awesome. Well, we thank you for having us. This has been great.
Yeah, we're big supporters. I'm a big fan of you guys. We're going to continue to be and look out for you, and I'll keep telling people to come check you guys out. It's and you know, and the beer's good too. I know we talked a little bit about it. The beer's good. So,
and
at the end of the day, it kind of needs to be, right?
And that shadow level is all open.
The fine folks here from Dark Shadow today, we look forward to talking to you in the future. And that is going to wrap up the Brewery Underground podcast for today. You can always follow us at Sullivan Touron BreweryAdventures.com. For Scott Touron, I'm Steve Sullivan.
Cheers.